studied 3 universities in my life. Technical University, Electronics, Cybernetics here in Bratislava. The second, LCI, it was like a Language Catechetical Institute, and after I studied Theological Faculty of Trnava University here in Slovakia. And from these 3 experiences of the university area or field, I think I would put to the first LCI experience.
I think it's hard for us in the West to imagine, to understand the level at which communism pervaded society and instilled fear, mistrust among ordinary people.
It was totalitarian, it was bad. We were forced to do something or to not to travel, not to read.
I remember how we used to pray the rosary when we were crossing the borders, like the whole time, rosary after rosary, rosary after rosary, praying that nobody would look into our car. And there were times they did look into our car. And it was so bad that they not even looked into our cars, but they took off all the books.
The church was liquidated completely, and the episcopal residence were confiscated, the seminary was confiscated, the cathedral, and all the churches that remained still ours were confiscated.
In Slovakia, the church wasn't allowed to exist even with great restrictions. So it wasn't absolute persecution, but for example, if you wanted to be a teacher or to work with people or even to do anything or have a higher position, you would be immediately discriminated. They would sort of have a secret file and say you're a churchgoer, therefore you're not fit.
You have to decide which way you want. You want to follow your family's faith or get a new one as a communist. You have to decide it. But if you decide the church, the Catholic faith, you didn't decide to be rich.
The city where I was in Slovakia, in Trnava, the organist was paid by the secret police to report on who was at Mass. And so if you were seen at church, it went on your file. And if you had a file that you were a churchgoer, you would never be accepted to university. You would not get the high-paying job. So most of the Catholics that generation are laborers, electricians, builders.
My mother couldn't teach. They threw her out of the job because I was going to the religious classes. My dad never was promoted because I went to religious class.
My parents had a very interesting life during communism because my mother was teacher. This meant she couldn't go to church. So when they were getting married, it had to be top secret.
You could never have catechism lessons. You could never have, other than churches were open for Mass and Mass only, and nothing else was allowed.
I didn't live during the totalitarian regime. I was born right after. But my parents, they lived and they were strongly persecuted for their faith, despite the fact they were never in jail, but they couldn't go to university or whatever. And so my uncle had to study as a priest secretly. No one knew that he's a priest until the fall of communism and so on.
Many priests were sent to exile, mainly those, approximately 120 priests didn't submit to sign the transfer to the Orthodoxy, so they were sent to exiles to Siberia. Many of them, some were killed right away. Some died there, some survived. That was the situation. It was really hard, psychologically, and not everyone were able to, to hold.
All the students non-believer or an atheist or an agnostic or a non-practicing one religion or another. We bring them to Gami. They're coming to the Kartauza. They're coming into this community where everyone around them is a practicing Catholic. That's a first for our students. That's one of the blessings of it being in Austria, because Austria, as a Catholic country for so many centuries, is one of the richest places in terms of Catholic culture, with art and music, architecture, and even the loveliness of the landscape. I mean, you have the natural beauty of the mountains, but you have the way the Austrians cultivate. So even the farmland is beautifully manicured. And our students are tremendously affected seeing that, because that is the opposite of communism, where creation was treated as with a utilitarian worldview, with a materialistic worldview for man to use, and it ends in destruction, decay. Whereas in Austria, you have the understanding that creation is a gift, and we give glory to God by caring for it.
When I passed the border with Austria, I thought that everything all of a sudden got into colors. The grass, the flowers, the buildings, like it was like breathing another spirit. It was overwhelming. And then Gaming. It's difficult to explain. The Carthusian cloister is it's incredible. I mean, everything was so calm, so peaceful. Just a place that I could imagine in heaven.
To be in Gaming somehow is like a retreat, but not for a week, for 2 semesters. Something like that. So it can strengthen their faith.
This is a special place where God in a special way talks to you. It's through everything, you know. All is new, and that's what I think human nature desires, to know something that is not known to you yet.
Gaming is still important, that they keep the truth of the Catholic faith.
I went to Mass. I had friends, Catholics, but it wasn't as I was surrounded by any sort of Catholic community. And when I came to Gaming, there was everything about God, and I'm not really used to it, because in Russia we don't really, I guess, open about it. And then I met my roommate and all of the other Franciscan students who were so open about it that it just, at first it was overwhelming, but it's beautiful. I really liked it.
There are no two separate lives, like spiritual and then public life, but there is just one life, which is Christian. And I always somehow knew about this, but in Gaming there was a possibility to see this in a practical life of the families that were there and students. So this helped me to realize what I want to bring back home, and so on.
It's so international that you can touch the essence of the family, of the Catholic family. And I learned to honor people from different cultures, from different parts of the world.
Even from USA, before I had prejudices to the Americans, and I think all they are very materialistic, and all they are kind of willing to have career or careeristic and so on and so on. And I met normal people, humble, open, spiritual, young American boys and girls, and it was something amazing for me.
I was shocked. It was for me unexpected, how people treated nicely each other in Gaming. This was a love community, and the life was so rich spiritually and full of respect, and everything is nice, and people are smiling to each other.
I saw this really strong witness of the Catholic marriages. The way they behaved to each other and the way they confessed their faith, they went to church and how they prayed and everything, and how they treated children, how peaceful they were, all this really struck me. And since then I knew I want a marriage like this, and I said I'll do anything to have a marriage like this.
Well, the first thing right off the bat is that you're in a completely English-speaking environment. And so, I mean, we're the language and catechetical institute, so they're coming to learn English and catechetics. And so as far as a language program goes, this is definitely far above the other ones in the sense it's uniquely placed. You can still stay in Europe, so it's still home, but at the same time, it's a completely English-speaking environment. It's almost like a little American sort of subculture, something like that.
Before, I spoke fluently in the Russian language, but the Russian language is close to Slovak language because there are Slavic languages. But English was first really foreign language for me. And when I was able to express my idea fluently to someone in English, it was something beautiful. And from Gaming, I experienced this beauty to speak kind of fluently in English. It was some like to fly, you know, or something like that. It was beautiful.
Learning English, learning it, having fun, you know, learning it, praying to God, learning it during going to the confession or life in the Holy Spirit, and during hiking, during visiting, traveling, you know, this is all the examples of how rich it could be and fun.
It's a whole another picture of the church when you live with people from 20 countries of the world. Then when you also have to talk with Americans and practice your language and try to express your faith in different language, and so it's a big challenge.
And the most important thing is the formation and the full program experience of what it means to be Catholic, learning and living the Catholic faith. What does it mean that Christ is at the center of my life? What does that mean theologically, yes, but what does it mean of how I spend my day, how I organize my week, how I worship on Sunday, how I treat my classmates, how I do my homework, how I live day to day. So that's why we also organized activities like the common dinner where the students cook together, share a meal, sharing their culture, and expressing Christian brotherhood, that we are united in Christ. It's really essential that the Franciscan University students are here and that we have a shared campus because of the East-West experience. And this is something Blessed Pope John Paul II stressed in his pontificate, that the church needs to breathe with two lungs, East and West. And he said that many times, and he meant, of course, liturgically, but also, I think, geopolitically, that there are gifts in the West and gifts in the East that need each other, likewise weaknesses that need each other. And Americans have so many gifts, namely the students who come from Franciscan University have so many gifts of openness, of enthusiasm for their faith, and I would say culturally of a let's do it mentality, let's get it done. What's the problem? Okay, how do we fix it? This can-do attitude and optimism that our students tremendously benefit from.
The passion for faith that is brought from the West is way too much different than from the East, because in East we were under the totalitarian regime, so still the consequences we still have to carry now, so we have that kind of more personal secret faith, and it's just starting to be like open and public style. In West it seems to be, I've experienced as a more more public, and also very internal faith. So these two things are connected.
Is the life together. So life, academic life, studying of the great masters is connected with living and praying with the great masters. Learning about charity, learning about God, but then practically living. And so what is unique and why is there is need of LCI and the places like LCI is that brings daily pursuit with life that is lived.
It was offering us to live a really genuine spiritual life, not only during classes. The spiritual richness which they can offer, is not this direct form, but it is more dialogical form. And I think it's very worthy for today's world, for today's young people.
Well, it absolutely convinced me that Catholic Church is the place I want to be. As for the person from Slovakia, I thought of my friends and I wondered why me, why I am so blessed by these experiences.
LCI was born right after the fall of the Berlin Wall, and I lived that enthusiasm of the new generation. I remember my mother crying, saying, "This is unbelievable."
The literature was destroyed. The immovable property were taken away completely. We had nothing, completely nothing. No seminary, no residence, no churches, no rectories. So we started from zero. Little by little, some churches were returned because the village transferred, 1991 mainly, transferred to the Greek Catholic faith again. And otherwise, in most cases, we started to build churches. The first big project was to get back the episcopal residence, which served as a state university library. Maybe half the residence is successfully being almost renewed.
In 1 year, it was all made. In 1 year. Last year, they just got here. The library just freed this place.
It's amazing.
Yeah. And this door is the secret door to the bishop shop.
Oh, that's so cool.
Since I came as project manager, there was consecrated maybe 120 churches. And altogether there is constructed 158 new churches. And still there should be constructed around 40 new churches besides that. And there was constructed 25 new parish houses, and we still need 160.
Is not only study about what is God, what about God, it's also help you to understand what is your life, what should you do after your life, this is study or rest of your life. So I really want to be a part of an orchestra. This is really my life, and because when I played the violin, actually I found a great, like the best way I communicate with God, with Lord, like through the music. Really, I think music is very unique. And sometimes the people say, well, it's just classical music, Beethoven, Brahms is nothing special, it's they're very old, they're not fashion anymore, you know. But I say, no. Actually, through their music, like, we had like great composer like Mozart, Haydn, and Bach. Even they wrote a lot of church music, like mass, like for the masses. When I listen to them, oh, thank you guys, thank you very much, because I found like a great connection between the music and God, you know, God Himself. And I said, I really want to be a professional musician.
So since my high school studies, first I was interested in art, and I'm still interested. I also do some art, but more I'm interested in philosophy and theology. So I'm not pretty sure, but I know that when it comes to the profession I would like to do, it's to teach, probably at the university, and then also try to do some translations of certain church fathers.
I would like to, at some point, to come back to Russia to do maybe some missionary work, and definitely do marriage consulting, and maybe pro-life. But, you know, it's God. I cannot really predict. I just stopped. Last year I just stopped making plans and I just go whatever God calls me to.
Ale ja nie chcę czytać. No, teraz zaczniesz. A może zaczniesz, dobra? Zacznij. Ale. I think if we want to be a healthy Catholic family, it's very difficult to put our children so early into such difficult situation and such struggles which they have to overcome. Homeschooling thing, I heard about it first time when I was in Gaming. I always liked the idea of being educated at home, but it was never possible here in Slovakia. And I thought it would be fun to do it, but still had so little experience with it, I couldn't really move with this knowledge. But when I went to America, there I saw.
And the end is in the house. His house is in the garden. It's under a tree. Výborne, aj to už preložiť? Hej. Dobre. A toto N je čo? Jaj? Priezvisko. Ten bravček. N. Aha.
Since I am out of Slovakia, I have to do things on my own and handle things as I can. So, but maybe on the basis of my experience, later on I will be able to do something about it in Slovakia, because I think it's going to be needed. And more people like the idea of homeschooling.
LCI definitely changed my life. I don't think I would. I cannot imagine my life without that year. I think I would still be somewhere in Russia, working in the bank, you know, just ordinary life, and probably be baptized, but who knows what would happen. But yeah.
At that graduation, we received a thick candle, and with the inscription, "You are the light of the world," and that's in a way summarizes the beautifully mission of the LCI to bring the light of Christ to this world. Language is important; it's a tool, but it's not just about language. It's precisely means to be able to speak the mysteries of Christ.
I climbed a mountain and I wrote my name in a book. I wandered every which way in the night time. I heard Mozart where Mozart first played, and I started a revolution.
Well, I so often hear the student, this changed my life. More recently, I've heard from some of the young students from Hungary, Augustin and Peter. Well, when I came to LCI, I thought I already was Catholic, but I realized being here that I only had an understanding that was for other people, and this is what we're supposed to believe. And now I really have experienced the love of God, and I want to share that with everyone I meet. Timur from Turkmenistan is now a translator at a major energy company in Turkmenistan because of the English language, because of his fluency. Another graduate last year, he went into a job interview in Slovakia, and the interviewer, without having told him ahead of time, began the interview in English. And our student, Lukasz, responded in English, and the interviewer was surprised and he said, "Oh, well, your English is better than mine." Of course, he got the job. So the English language part is important, and that's something that I hear often. Marko from Croatia, he was a very successful student on his path to being a lawyer, and he is a diplomat and a lawyer today. He said he learned here to put God first in his life, and that now affects everything he does. Maya from Bosnia-Herzegovina said, "I wish all of my classmates at home could learn what I've learned here. I have to go back and tell them. They don't know." Marinella from Albania, the same thing. She came back from Christmas break, and she said, "All of my friends at home think I'm crazy. I want to go to Mass every day. I didn't realize how much I'd changed. I'm a new person. I'm going to make sure my sister learns this love of God, and I want as many people as possible to know this love of God." So those are the most exciting, that experience of the love of God, and that converts them.
You were the first one, you were the last one, you were the only one I wanted to find. I waited for you, I looked everywhere, you were the only one I wanted to find.